But first, let's get into it. What a week. On Sunday, ICE arrested nearly 1,000 people in raids across multiple cities, the most in a single day since President Trump returned to office. It would have been over 1,000 arrests until they found out that most of the people on the Amelia Perez tour are not from Mexico. Some of those raids were attended by none other than television's Dr. Phil, who embedded with ICE officers in Chicago and live-streamed his adventure on Merit TV. Just for the time capsule, I want to say that sentence again because of how normal it seems to us. Television psychologist Dr. Phil McGraw embedded with immigration officers as part of President Donald Trump's broad immigrant crackdown at the start of his second term. When reached for comment, Dr. Phil said, "Sure, I tore families apart in the studio, but sometimes it's nice to get out there and see it in the real world." Here's Dr. Phil getting recognized by a man under arrest who said he was born in Thailand.
But you've never been deported before?
Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil.
How do you know me? I saw you on Dr. Phil. On Monday, Trump gave a speech to the House Republican Conference saying this about the deportations.
300 people sitting in a plane, every one of them either a murderer, a drug lord, a kingpin of some kind, the head of the mob, or a gang member. And you're flying that plane, it's not going to end well. Do you ever see the movie Con Air? That's what, yeah, except here's the difference. The people in Con Air were actors.
Look, it's not important, but we've got years to talk about what's important. The moral of Con Air is not that Con Air was a good way to transport the criminals. Con Air didn't work. Like, sure, Steve Buscemi didn't murder that little girl, but other than that, the whole thing went pretty much tits up. Con Air, the inspiring story about how transporting prisoners by plane is a good idea. On Monday, Trump signed an executive order shutting down the military's DEI programs and reinstated service members who were discharged after refusing the COVID-19 vaccine with back pay. Just so we understand where we're at here, Trump's position has always been clear. COVID-19 was created in a lab as a biological weapon to be used in war, and America's military should be as vulnerable as possible to it. He also issued an order banning transgender people from military service, which is huge for Trump. He's just invented an exciting new way to dodge the draft. People often forget this, but the trans ban is why the A-Team went AWOL after Mrs. T made that big life change. We debated people would know the A-Team. Enough of you did. Enough of you knew. And then on Tuesday, Trump announced an executive order to make it harder for doctors and parents to provide gender-affirming care to trans kids, including teenagers as old as 18. Look, this is obviously awful. This is the government getting between parents and children, between doctors and their patients. It is a group of right-wing ideologues imposing their fears and hatreds on all of us. And worst of all, this may stop young people from accessing gender-affirming care that will help them become the best and truest versions of themselves, while doing nothing to stop those very same young people from choosing new weird names like Canopy or Bayou. Everybody loses. Meanwhile, in a vaguely worded memo on Monday, the Office of Management and Budget ordered an abrupt pause on all federal grants and loans, causing widespread confusion, with hospitals, schools, and other organizations that depend on federal payments unsure if they'd be able to provide basic services. Oh, what? So now the White House Budget Office can't get loose and try stuff out? Creativity's illegal? Hey, hospitals, try a little more yes and a little less we need insulin. It's jazz. And the panic only increased when the Medicaid portal where states access federal funding stopped working on Tuesday. Trump's new press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said in an X post, "The White House is aware of the Medicaid website portal outage. We have confirmed no payments have been affected. They are still being processed and sent. We expect the portal will be back online shortly." And let's just stop and review in case anyone is confused. Caroline Leavitt is the terrible press secretary. Jonathan Lovett is the podcaster who's weirdly looking younger lately. Democrats pointed out that the freeze is unconstitutional. It's up to Congress to appropriate federal funds and up to the executive to spend those funds as Congress has directed. That money is our tax dollars. It's already been allotted. If we wanted to fund a study of whether mice can drive tiny Subarus, that's where the money should fucking go. And don't worry, I've been in touch with the Stuart Little Institute, and so far they've been unaffected. The OMB subsequently issued a new memo telling federal officials that the pause was only meant to apply to programs specified in Trump's executive orders, including those that took aim at foreign aid, climate spending, and DEI programs. The initial memo, as written, went much further. So did they do a bad job writing memos, or did they try to get away with something insane and underestimate the backlash? Either way, sure wish Kamala had a better answer on The View that time. A federal judge in D.C. temporarily blocked the order on Tuesday before it was set to go into effect, siding with the activist group Democracy Forward. And then on Wednesday, the Washington Post broke the news. Trump's Office of Management and Budget rescinded the order to freeze federal funding. Or did it? White House Press Secretary Jon Lovett threw America back into uncertainty, writing on Twitter, "This is not a rescission of the federal funding freeze. It is simply a rescission of the OMB memo." What does it mean? Your guess is as good as mine. I liked the government 2 weeks ago. The president at that time was also incomprehensible, but in a way that was much less terrifying day to day. Also this week, the Trump administration sent a memo to every single federal worker, all 2 million of them, offering them an option to resign now and continue being paid through September. The subject line of that buyout offer email was "Fork in the Road," the same line that Elon Musk titled his email to Twitter employees in 2022, when he told them to commit to extremely hardcore work or leave the company. More like "Dork in the Road." Do you think we're all dead? What if we're all dead? And where were the Democrats during all of this, you ask? Why, they were leaping into action. Here's Chuck Schumer.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
You know, earlier this week, I said Democrats should stop wasting time workshopping their perfect message and just get out there and speak from the heart. Today, I feel like maybe a little more workshopping. So I stand corrected. Bernie Sanders said of the freeze, "If President Trump wants to change our nation's laws, he has the right to ask Congress to change them. He does not have the right to violate the United States Constitution. He is not a king." Not a king? I don't know. Multiple wives, one of whom is buried in the backyard, casting off advisors the second they cross him, symptoms of syphilis in the brain. None of us would be surprised to learn he had gout. There's a lot of red meat in that diet. And on some level, we all know that if he started wearing a crown, a lot of people would be completely into it. Late Wednesday, an Army helicopter carrying 3 U.S. service members collided midair with an American Airlines flight carrying 64 people near Ronald Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft crashed into the icy Potomac River, said a spokesperson for Boeing, "Not ours." I don't know. With literally nothing known about the cause of the accident, President Trump held a press conference on Thursday to blame, you guessed it, DEI.
We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite.
DEI is starting fires in California. It's crashing planes in D.C. Pace yourself, DEI. It's only January. You're going to burn out. When asked whether he was getting ahead of the investigation, Trump shot on the reporter who asked the question.
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all.
Does it comfort their families?
They are a group of people that have lost it. I think that's not a very smart question.
Yeah, use your critical thinking skills. It wasn't a White Hawk helicopter. Hey, how's everybody doing? Everybody hanging in there? Bill's in the aisle with a bottle of gin, and Kennedy's on the other side with a fistful of Ativan. Just raise your hand, and one of them will find you, or both of them, if you're nasty. Whatever you need. But rest easy. Trump's new transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, is on the case.
Obviously, it is not standard to have aircraft collide. I want to be clear on that.
I'm glad he pivoted away from his earlier message of, I think they're supposed to do that. Last week, Trump dismissed everyone on the Aviation Security Advisory Committee. Air traffic controllers were also affected by Trump's federal hiring freeze. What Trump is doing is sort of like what surgeons do. They take out all of the organs, then put them back in one by one until the patient is fine. That way, everyone can be certain that all the leftover organs were a waste of taxpayer money. Of course, there's no evidence so far that Trump's freeze or dismissals had any role in the crash. But maybe we just say they did. Should we try it? I don't know. You see a plane crash on the news, the president blames diversity, and a former Real World star is transportation secretary explaining that planes are not supposed to do that. Maybe we just try it. Nah, it's not us. It's never been us. That's the shame of it. We could be. You want it to be us? You want to just do it? You want to get there? I don't know. No, now you see, there's that little flicker. There's that social studies student. There are my perfect, sweet little front row angels. You know it. You know you want it. You feel that pull. You feel the devil on your shoulder. Like, let's do what they do. Can we do what they do? But here's the problem. We can't do what they do. We can't pull it off because we have shame. We do, and it sucks. It sucks, but we're fighting with one hand behind our backs. That's just how it goes. We're getting the absolute ever-loving shit beat out of us. And, well, that's it. And it's like, what do we do? You get fucking housed. The truth is, this is the first commercial crash to result in fatalities in the United States since 2009. Flying is incredibly safe, and it is incredibly safe because of the federal government. Trump's changes, in all likelihood, didn't cause this, but his attack on our government is going to lead to a world where crashes like this are more commonplace, bullying people out of their jobs, undermining these agencies. He feels unconstrained in doing this because Americans take for granted the safety and reliability that aren't a given, but instead are the result of decades of hard, painstaking work to build inspection regimes and safety measures, and yes, bureaucracies that can be annoying and slow, but also made it so our biggest worry when we fly is whether that guy with the rotisserie chicken is sitting next to you. And he is, and it's me.
Love It or Leave It is brought to you by Factor. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared. Perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor's keto meals. Based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto, results will vary depending on diet and exercise. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goal this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. I love Factor. It's awesome. Truly, if you're trying to eat healthy and you're like busy, add Factor for us. You can decide how many meals a week you want. And just, it's so nice knowing that in your fridge, it's just a healthy, easy meal that's really good, ready to go. And just like have it replace 2 or 3 takeout meals a week or 2 or 3 sandwiches a week, and you'll just be better for it. Get started at factormeals.com/lowly50off, LOLI50 off, and use code lowly50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOLI50OFF at factormeals.com/lowly50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
Trump's acting attorney general, James McHenry, on Monday fired more than a dozen prosecutors who worked on special counsel Jack Smith's criminal investigations into Donald Trump. According to a DOJ spokesperson, McHenry said they couldn't be trusted to faithfully implement Trump's agenda. You know, it's interesting. If Joe Biden had narrowly lost, there wouldn't have been an insurrection. Donald Trump wouldn't have been radicalized against democracy. And he wouldn't have had the time to put in place the plans he's now implementing so thoroughly. And we'd right now be saying goodbye to him as he was tarred with all the damage that came from inflation that he would have had no ability to stop. No use thinking about that. On Tuesday, Caroline Kennedy, daughter of JFK, heard of him? Sent a letter to the Senate tearing apart her cousin, RFK Jr., ahead of his Senate confirmation hearing. Here she is, reading from that letter.
I've known Bobby my whole life. We grew up together. It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets, because Bobby himself is a predator.
By the same token, it's no surprise that I keep a golden doodle as a pet because I myself am a fussy, barfy princess. Imagine you're in the middle of a job interview for a new job you're excited about, and your first cousin, barges in and says you used to do terrible things to animals. Now imagine the interviewers are like, we're on the fence. Anyway, nobody takes down a Kennedy better than a Kennedy or the CIA. Caroline also described RFK Jr.'s bizarre behavior while dealing with addiction, writing, he enjoyed showing off how he put baby chickens and mice in the blender to feed his hawks. It was often a perverse scene of despair and violence. Oh, sure, you all hate putting baby chickens and mice in the blender now, but every single one of you will pay $20 for it when Erewhon calls it a smoothie. Try the new RFK Jr. smoothie at Erewhon. It's got sea moss in it. You all fell for bone broth, which is a $7 upcharge on what? Broth. Fucking idiots. She also pointed out that Kennedy has kept a financial stake in litigation against manufacturers of the HPV vaccine, despite being Trump's nominee to head the Department of Health and Human Services. Wrote Caroline, in other words, he is willing to enrich himself by denying access to a vaccine that can prevent almost all forms of cervical cancer, and which has been safely administered to millions of boys and girls. RFK Jr. cheated on his second wife 37 times, but it just wasn't spreading HPV fast enough. You gotta work smarter, not harder, people. But don't worry, Kennedy's confirmation hearing got off to a reassuring start.
President Trump has asked me to study the safety of mifepristone. He has not yet taken a stand on how to regulate it. Whatever he does, I will implement those policies.
Continued Kennedy, if you want an abortion, you can do it the old-fashioned way, by having your children and then not vaccinating them. Yeah. Here's Senator Bernie Sanders pointing out the anti-vax merch available from the organization Kennedy founded, the Children's Defense Fund. The products included baby clothes that said, unvaxxed, unbothered, and no vax, no problem. Here's what Sanders said.
Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with leadership.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
Exposed by your own merch? Couldn't be me. I stand 100% behind everything in the crooked store. And then on Thursday, as the Kennedy hearing continued in the Help Committee, Trump's pick for FBI, Kash Patel, appeared before the Judiciary Committee. Let's check in on how that went.
Your boss has said that General Milley, who served us with great distinction, I happen to have great admiration for, should be tried for treason. Do you agree with that?
Senator, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Is the dress blue and black or white and gold? Should we hang generals in the ellipse for displeasing the leader? Do you hear brainstorm or green needle? In other chest-clenching news, following Trump's announcement of $500 billion investments in AI, OpenAI founder Sam Altman raised some red flags by saying AI might require changes to the social contract. So what are we talking about? We're talking about no pants? Maybe we're talking about no pants. Let's see him try to explain it.
I still expect, although I don't know what, and this is over a long period of time. This is not a like next year or, the year after that kind of thing. But over a long period of time, I still expect that there will be some change required to the social contract, given how powerful we expect this technology to be.
Talking about changing the social contract as we put more and more power in the hands of a single, unaccountable leader, Thomas Hobbes must be rolling over in his grave to give us 2 thumbs up. As for AI's effect on job creation, Altman said this.
I'm not a believer that there won't be any jobs. I think we always find new things to do. But I do think the whole structure of society itself will, be up for some degree of debate and reconfiguration.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the heads up. Please keep us posted. Then this week, the Chinese company DeepSeek introduced its artificial intelligence, which experts say creates models nearly as good as those created by OpenAI, but much cheaper. And yet they chose to call it DeepSeek when ChatGPT was right there. Now OpenAI is accusing DeepSeek of using their models to train DeepSeek AI, which OpenAI says is a violation of their terms of service. DeepSeek used someone else's work to inform and develop their own. Who would do such a thing? The Vatican released a document warning that AI will gradually undermine the foundations of society by destabilizing our connection to objective reality, which is our job, said the Pope. So quit it, you fragachinos. I don't remember what the word was, but in my mind it's fragachinos. But don't worry, it's not all bad. In dromedary news, camel milk might be the next big alternative to cow's milk, according to People magazine. I'm not sure why, but it is according to them, as it's easier to access in parts of the world where cattle farming is impractical. I know what you're thinking, camel milk, but it's actually very simple. You just soak the camel in water overnight, you grind it into a fine paste, and then you strain it through a cheesecloth. Fresh, delicious camel milk. All right, now, listen. Tonight, jokes aside, we're going to do a taste test. Our producers are bringing out a glass of regular whole cow's milk and a glass of camel's milk. Kendra, everybody. And now I know you're thinking, camel's milk, where could you get that? You know where you can get it in Los Angeles, at like 4 weird stores. And here's the thing about finding camel's milk. There's only 2 answers when you call a grocery store to ask if they have camel milk. Of course, and are you insane? We'd like 1 volunteer for a blind taste test to see which one you actually prefer. We'll also hope you can guess which one is the camel's milk. And I will say you will have to sign a milk waiver. We do have the waiver. Bill has the waiver. Would somebody like to volunteer? Oh, we have a volunteer right here in the front row. Come on up. There's genuinely a waiver. We're not fucking around here. I'm sorry. You see what's going on? See what they're trying to do to media companies? We've got a waiver. Hi, what's your name?
Lori.
Lori? Okay. I know which one is which. Okay. All right. One of these is the cow's milk, and one of them is the camel's milk. All right. Why don't you taste one and see what you think? Okay, any reaction to the first one before we get to the second sip?
No.
Okay. What do you think? Which one do you think is the cow's milk? Which one do you think is the camel's milk?
They're so similar.
Interesting.
Can I do it again?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. You're sure they're different?
One of them is camel's milk and one of them is cow's milk. They're both camel's milk.
They are? No.
They're both cow's milk.
I was going to say, they taste very similar. I don't know. I haven't had real milk. I drink soy milk. So, I mean...
Get out of here. Great job. And finally, the Blue Man Group has ended after 34 years of performing in New York. It's like this is where they found out about 9/11. What? Yes, the Blue Man Group is ending after 34 years of performing in New York. 2 members of the trio were released into the Hudson Valley. Sadly, after biting Bernadette Peters outside Balthazar, the third was humanely euthanized. And that is a lie. He begged for his life. Or at least that's what we think he was doing by banging on those pots and pans.